The red and blue lights painted everything in harsh, alternating colors behind me as I sat in my Mercedes, hands visible on the steering wheel exactly where they taught us in law school during our dealing with law enforcement seminars. My heart hammered against my ribs, not from guilt. I knew I hadn't been speeding, but from the familiar cocktail of anger and resignation that comes with being a black man in an expensive car on a Tuesday afternoon. License and registration. The officer barked through my barely cracked window, his hand already resting on his service weapon. I could see his nameplate, Officer Martinez. Young, maybe mid-20s, with that particular brand of aggressive confidence that screamed rookie trying to prove himself. Certainly, officer, I replied, keeping my voice level and professional. My license is in my wallet, and the registration is in the glove compartment. I'm going to reach for them slowly. He stepped back, hand moving closer to his weapon. Keep your hands where I can see them. This was already going sideways, and we hadn't even gotten to the part where he'd inevitably claim I was driving erratically or my taillights looked suspicious. I'd been through this dance before, though not recently. Not since I'd been appointed to the bench 3 years ago. Officer Martinez, I said, reading his nameplate again as I slowly retrieved my documents. May I ask why you pulled me over? You know why, he snapped, snatching my license without looking at it. Speeding, reckless driving. You people always think you can. He stopped mid-sentence, staring at my license. Then he looked at me, then back at the license. His face went through several interesting color changes. Is there a problem, officer? I asked, though I already knew what he was seeing. The Honorable Marcus Washington, Superior Court Judge, 3rd District, but instead of the usual stammering apology I'd witnessed other officers give when they realized their mistake, Martinez doubled down. His jaw set in that stubborn way I'd seen countless times in my courtroom when defendants realized they were caught, but refused to admit it. I don't care what this says, he said, waving my license. Anybody can fake an ID these days. You were doing at least 70 in a 55 zone. I had to admire his commitment to the lie, even as my blood pressure spiked. Officer, I have a dash cam in my vehicle that records speed. I was doing 53 miles per hour. Would you like me to show you? Don't you move, he shouted, hand back on his weapon. And don't you dare try to tell me how to do my job. A few cars slowed as they passed, their occupants craning their necks to watch the show. I wondered what they saw. Just another black man getting hassled by police, or something more? Did they recognize me from the local news segments about the new courthouse initiatives? Not that it mattered. In this moment, with Martinez's hand on his gun and his face red with either embarrassment or rage, I was just another suspect. I'm not telling you how to do your job, I said carefully. I'm simply offering evidence that might be relevant to your investigation. My investigation? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think this is some kind of investigation? This is me writing you a ticket for speeding and probably adding a few more violations while I'm at it. Failure to signal, maybe some equipment violations. That's a nice car, but it's not even yours. The casual racism hit like a slap, but I'd learned long ago that reacting with anger in situations like this only made things worse. Instead, I pulled out my phone. What are you doing? Martinez demanded. I'm calling my attorney, I said calmly. That's my right, isn't it? Put the phone down. You're reaching for what could be a weapon. Now he was just being ridiculous. Officer Martinez, this is clearly a cell phone. I'm calling my lawyer to witness this interaction. I said put it down. His voice cracked slightly, and I realized. He was scared. Not of me, necessarily, but of the situation spiraling out of his control. A scared cop was a dangerous cop that I slowly placed the phone on my dashboard, hands returning to the steering wheel. It's down, but I want you to know that this entire interaction is being recorded by my vehicle's security system. That should have been the end of it. A professional officer would have taken a step back, maybe called for a supervisor, tried to de-escalate. Instead, Martinez seemed to take it as a personal challenge. Oh, you think you're smart, don't you? He leaned down to my window, his face inches from mine. You think having a fancy car and a fake ID makes you better than me? Let me tell you something. I don't care who you think you are. Out here, I'm the law. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so dangerous. Here was a police officer, sworn to uphold justice, telling an actual judge that he didn't care about the law. But Martinez wasn't done. Step out of the vehicle, he ordered. On what grounds? suspicion of driving under the influence. I stared at him. Officer, I haven't had so much as a cup of coffee with alcohol in the past 6 months. I'm completely sober. We'll see about that. Out of the car. Now, this was escalating beyond anything I'd experienced before. Usually, traffic stops ended with either a ticket or an apology once officers realized who I was. But Martinez seemed determined to prove some point. Even if it meant potentially ending his career, I slowly opened my door. My mind was already working through the legal implications. False arrest, racial profiling, abuse of power. The list was growing by the minute, and Martinez seemed oblivious to the hole he was digging for himself. Hands on the hood, he commanded, pushing me roughly against my car. Spread your legs. The pat-down was unnecessarily aggressive, clearly designed to humiliate rather than ensure safety. Other drivers continued to slow down, some pulling out. Phones to record. Good. The more witnesses, the better. What's this? Martinez had found my work phone, the one with the secure courthouse email system. That's my work phone, I said. Sure it is. He scrolled through it, clearly looking for something incriminating. Then his face changed again. I couldn't see what he was reading, but I had a pretty good idea. Judge Washington, he read aloud, his voice suddenly much quieter. Courthouse security briefing. Meeting with District Attorney Thompson. The silence stretched between us. Behind me, I could hear traffic continuing to slow, drivers recognizing that something significant was happening. Martinez's breathing had become audible, quick and shallow. This can't be right, he muttered, but his voice lacked conviction now that I turned around slowly, hands still visible. Officer Martinez, I think we need to call your supervisor. But Martinez had gone from aggressive to desperate. No, he said. Quickly. No, this is just a routine traffic stop. I'm going to write you a warning, and we can both go about our day. I'm afraid that's not going to be possible, I said gently. You've already committed several violations of department policy and my civil rights. We're well past the point of a simple warning. His face crumpled slightly, the reality of his situation finally sinking in. Look, Judge, Your Honor, I didn't know. The fact that you didn't know who I was isn't the problem, Officer Martinez, I said. The problem is how you treated me when you thought I was just another black man in an expensive car. That's when I heard the second set of sirens. Martinez's radio crackled to life. Unit 47, respond to your location. We have multiple calls about an incident in progress. Martinez grabbed his radio with shaking hands. Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I have the situation under control. No backup needed. But it was too late. The supervisor's car was already pulling up behind us, followed by what looked like half the department. Someone had called it in, probably multiple someones. Judging by the response to AS the supervisor approached, Martinez made one last desperate play. Martinez, what the hell is going on here? Sergeant Cooper's voice cut through the afternoon air like a blade. I'd seen him in my courtroom before, a 20-year veteran with graying temples and the kind of steady demeanor that comes from seeing everything twice. His eyes swept the scene, me standing beside my Mercedes, Martinez clutching his radio like a lifeline, and at least 6 patrol cars now lined up behind us with their lights painting the street in disco colors. Martinez straightened up, trying to salvage some authority. Sergeant, I pulled this individual over for speeding, and is that Judge Washington? Cooper interrupted, his voice dropping to a dangerous quiet. Sir, he claims to be, but I have reason to believe, Martinez. Cooper's tone could have frozen water. Step away from the judge. Now, I watched Martinez's face cycle through denial, bargaining, and finally land on panic. The other officers who'd responded were hanging back, but I could see the recognition in their eyes. Most of them had been in my courtroom at one point or another, testifying in cases or attending hearings. Your Honor, Sergeant Cooper approached with his hands clearly visible, the way officers are trained to approach superior court judges. I sincerely apologize for this situation. Are you injured? I'm fine, Sergeant Cooper, I replied. Though I am concerned about Officer Martinez's conduct during this stop. Cooper's jaw tightened. Martinez, give me your report. From the beginning. And make it accurate. Martinez launched into a story about me speeding, driving erratically, and being uncooperative. With each lie, I watched Cooper's expression grow darker. Finally, I held up my hand. Sergeant, if I may, I said. My vehicle is equipped with a comprehensive recording system. Video, audio, and telemetry data, including precise speed readings. Everything Officer Martinez just described can be verified or disproven. The color drained from Martinez's face. That's not admissible. Privacy laws. Actually, I said calmly. Recordings made by a vehicle owner of their own traffic stop are perfectly admissible, especially when police conduct is in question. I should know. I've ruled on similar cases. Cooper closed his eyes briefly, probably calculating the legal and public relations nightmare unfolding before him. Your Honor, would you be willing to review that footage with us? Of course. I retrieved my phone and pulled up the app linked to my car's system. The video was crystal clear, me driving exactly 53 miles per hour in a 55 zone, using my turn signal, coming to a complete stop at the red light where Martinez had pulled up behind me. We watched Martinez approach my car. His aggressive posture and immediate hand on his weapon were obvious. The audio was even more damning. You people always think you can. Martinez's voice came through the speaker clearly. Cooper stopped the playback. That's enough. He turned to Martinez with the look I'd seen him give lying defendants. Officer Martinez, you're relieved of duty pending a full investigation. Hand over your weapon and badge. Sarge, come on. This is just a misunderstanding. Badge and weapon. Now, as Martinez reluctantly complied, his hands shaking, I felt no satisfaction. Just sadness for what this represented. Another officer who'd let prejudice cloud his judgment. Another incident that would make the news and further erode community trust. Your Honor, Cooper said after Martinez had been escorted to a patrol car. I want you to know this doesn't represent our department's values. I know it doesn't, Sergeant. I work with your officers every day. Most of them are professionals who understand their role in the justice system. Cooper nodded, but we both knew the damage was done. Within hours, this would be all over social media. Judge pulled over. Officer makes career-ending mistake. The headlines would write themselves. What happens now? I asked. Internal Affairs will conduct a full investigation. There'll likely be federal involvement given the civil rights implications. And Your Honor. He paused. I think Officer Martinez is going to find himself on the other side of your bench very soon. 2 weeks later, that prediction proved accurate. Officer Martinez, former Officer Martinez, sat in my courtroom wearing an ill-fitting suit instead of his uniform. His lawyer, a public defender who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else, shuffled papers nervously as the prosecutor read the charges. Deprivation of civil rights under color of law, false imprisonment, official misconduct. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who'd told me, I don't care who you think you are, was now facing the very system he'd sworn to serve. The man who'd said, out here, I'm the law, was about to learn what the law actually meant. How does the defendant plead? I asked that Martinez's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear before standing. Not guilty, Your Honor. Of course, even faced with video evidence and multiple witnesses, he was going to fight it. Some people never learn. The trial was swift. The video I'd recorded was played for the jury, along with testimony from the witnesses, who'd stopped to film the encounter. Martinez's own body camera had mysteriously malfunctioned, a convenient technical issue that only made him look worse. His defense attorney tried to argue that he'd felt threatened, that he'd made reasonable officer safety decisions. But the video told a different story. It showed a young officer who'd let his biases override his training, who'd escalated a routine traffic stop into a federal case because he couldn't accept that a black man might actually belong in an expensive car. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. As I read the verdict, Martinez finally broke down. The weight of what he'd lost, his career, his pension, his reputation, hit him all at once. His mother, sitting in the gallery, was crying quietly. Mr. Martinez, I said during sentencing, you had the honor of wearing a badge and carrying the public trust. You took an oath to protect and serve all citizens equally. Instead, you allowed prejudice to guide your actions, and in doing so, you betrayed everything that badge represents. I sentenced him to 2 years in federal prison and 3 years of supervised release. It was on the lighter end of the federal guidelines, but it would ensure he never wore a badge again. After court, I sat in my chambers thinking about the encounter that had started it all. Martinez had been right about one thing. I did think. I was better than him. Not because of my race or my car or my position, but because I understood something he never had. True authority comes from serving justice, not from wielding power over others. The real tragedy wasn't just Martinez's ruined career or even the civil rights violation. It was the missed opportunity. If he'd simply treated me with the basic respect every citizen deserves, if he'd acknowledged his mistake when he realized who I was, if he'd shown even a moment of genuine remorse, we might have had a different conversation. I might have used it as a teaching moment instead of a legal precedent. But Martinez had chosen a different path. He'd doubled down on his prejudice, escalated when he should have de-escalated, and ultimately proven that some people shouldn't wear a badge. 6 months later, I received a letter forwarded through the prison system. Martinez's handwriting was careful, deliberate. Your Honor, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I understand now what I did wrong. It wasn't just pulling you over or not recognizing who you were. It was treating you like you were less than human because of the color of your skin. I'm sorry for that, and I'm sorry it took losing everything for me to see it. I hope someday I can make amends. I filed the letter away, but I didn't respond. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way, and some apologies come too late to matter. Martinez would have to live with the consequences of his choices, just like everyone else who appears in my courtroom. But his letter did remind me why I'd become a judge in the first place, to ensure that justice applies equally to everyone, regardless of who they are or where they come from. Even former police officers who forgot that fundamental truth, even especially them.